By 1975, bright yellow trucks from the Alaska pipeline were turning up in Miami, then Mexico City, 4,000 miles from the ice roads they were bought for. The Los Angeles Times counted as many as 200 missing machines. The company insisted it was 20, maybe 30. 2 years later, that same company threw what the New York Times called one of the biggest going out of business sales in history. More than 20,000 machines, and every single one had to go somewhere. Ever since, one story refuses to die: that the iron they could not sell is still buried out there. We checked. Start with those trucks, because they tell you everything about the scale of this thing. Alyeska Pipeline Service Company was running the largest privately funded construction project the world had ever seen. 800 miles of steel from Prudhoe Bay down to the tanker docks at Valdez, 28,000 workers on the payroll at the peak in the fall of 1975, and a fleet of roughly 1,200 bright yellow company trucks scattered across camps and work sites from the Arctic Ocean to Prince William Sound. Nobody could watch all of it, not in the winter dark, and not at 70 below zero. So trucks started leaving. Some drove out on the New Hall Road, and some rolled onto barges. And by the time the Los Angeles Times started asking questions, Pipeline Yellow was showing up in Florida driveways and Mexico City side streets, still wearing the company markings. Alyeska's answer made it worse. They said the problem barely existed. 20 trucks gone, maybe 30. The reporters counted closer to 200. Somewhere between those two numbers sits the only fleet from this project that genuinely vanished without a paper trail. Hold on to that, because it matters later. And here is the part that flips the whole story. Those missing trucks were a rounding error. Because in January of 1977, 5 months before oil first moved through the line, Alyeska put the entire rest of the operation up for sale. Now, the legend. Spend any time around old pipeline hands, or in the comments under our last video, and you will hear a version of the same claim: that when the job ended, the iron was worth less than the freight, that Alyeska pushed bulldozers into pits, buried them under the gravel pads, and walked away. It is a great story. It is also the exact claim we set out to test, and the first document we pulled killed the simplest version of it in one paragraph. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline Authorization Act, the federal law that allowed this project to exist at all, required Alyeska to take the construction camps apart and haul them away. Not encouraged, required. 7 camps were shut down in November of 1976. 6 more closed before the 1977 season even started, and the gravel pads underneath them were dug up and hauled off, so that any spilled fuel and oil left with the gravel. Alyeska's own records show at least one campsite near Galbraith Lake stripped and replanted with native vegetation by 1978. You do not scrape out the gravel and replant the tundra on top of a buried bulldozer fleet. So the burial story has a legal problem. But that only sharpens the real question. If they could not bury 20,000 machines, what do you actually do with them? If you want to see where all that iron actually ended up, hit like and subscribe, because the answer runs through 3 auction houses, 1 California dealer with a camera habit, and a filing cabinet in Ohio. Here is what Alyeska was sitting on in January of 1977. A reporter from Time magazine named John Quirt went north and wrote down the inventory, and the numbers still read like a misprint. 18,000 pieces of heavy equipment. Bulldozers, cranes, side booms, graders, the whole arsenal that had just carved a trench across 3 mountain ranges and 800 miles of permafrost. On top of that, close to 2,000 pickup trucks, 125 portable bridges, the kind you drop across a river when there is no road and no time to build one. And then the part that sounds invented, but is sitting right there in the 1977 article. 5,395 modular camp buildings, dormitories, kitchens, game rooms and offices, fully equipped, in Time's own words, right down to the telephones and the Coke machines. Alyeska even had a prize item: 1,500 insulated outhouses engineered for comfort at 70 degrees below zero that had cost $10,000 apiece just to build. That is the toilet budget of a project that started with a $900 million estimate and had blown past $7.7 billion by the time Quirt toured the line. The New York Times looked at the whole pile and called it one of the biggest going-out-of-business sales in history, which was a strange headline because Alyeska was not going out of business. The oil had not even started flowing yet. They were simply done building, and everything that had built the thing was now in the way. So how do you liquidate an armada at the top of the world? The first thing we can nail down is who swung the hammer. The auction catalogs survive, archived by the Historical Construction Equipment Association, and they name 3 firms: Max Rouse and Sons, Miller and Miller Auctioneers, and Parks Davis Auctioneers. Remember those names? Because half the internet credits these sales to a more famous auction giant, and the paperwork says otherwise. But the auctions were only one channel, and this is where the story stops being folklore and turns into receipts. In August of 1977, a used equipment dealer from Southgate, California, called MP McCaffrey Incorporated, bought a block of machinery directly from Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Not at auction. Direct. Their internal inventory logged the units as JV 1396 through JV 1402, purchased on August 17th. And McCaffrey did something for us that nobody asked them to do. They photographed everything. Every machine that rolled through their yard got an inventory card and a picture. And today, roughly 6,500 of those photographs sit in the archive of the National Construction Equipment Museum in Bowling Green, Ohio. Then the auction season opened, and McCaffrey kept buying. Lots in May of 1978, more that June, another block at the end of August, more in October, and a final run in March of 1979. 5 separate buying trips over 2 years, every one of them dated in the inventory, which tells you 2 things the legend never mentions. First, forget the image of one dramatic fire sale. The liquidation ground on from direct deals in the summer of '77, deep into 1979. Second, the machines went south the boring way, through dealers, onto lowboys and barges, and back into the used iron market of the lower 48, one purchase order at a time. What we could not verify is just as important, and we want to be straight with you about it. The total dollar figure Alyeska recovered is not in any public record we could find. Neither is a single documented hammer price. Anyone who tells you a pipeline D9 went for pennies on the dollar is telling you a story without a receipt. By the way, if your family brought home pipeline iron, a truck, a cat, anything with a story attached, tell us in the comments. The last time we asked, the answers rewrote this episode. Now the camps, because a bulldozer fits on a truck, a town does not. 31 construction camps had gone up along the line, complete little settlements with their own power plants, water systems, and mess halls. The law said remove them. So Alyeska sold them, and this is where the disposal gets genuinely strange. 20 of the camps went up for sale as camps, whole facilities. One was bought by the University of Alaska and turned into an Arctic research station, and one of them refused to die at all. Partway up the Hall Road, at a river bend deep in the Brooks Range foothills, sat a camp at a place called Coldfoot. When the pipeline crews pulled out, truckers hauling loads north to Prudhoe Bay kept stopping there, and they started hammering together a rough truck stop out of the wooden crates that had shipped pipeline insulation north. In 1981, a man named Dick Mackey, who had won the Iditarod sled dog race 3 years earlier by the length of a dog's nose, set up shop selling hamburgers out of a converted school bus. The operation grew. Surplus camp dormitory modules, the same furnished boxes from that time inventory, were hauled in and bolted together into a 50-room motel. That motel is still standing today, and it still rents rooms. What is often called the farthest north truck stop in America is, in a very real sense, a piece of the pipeline sail that never left. As for the ground the other camps stood on, crews pulled the buildings, dug out the gravel pads, and hauled the gravel away so the fuel spills went with it. Then they replanted. Fly the line today, and the tundra has closed over most of those sites. Not because anything was buried, because everything was removed. Which brings us back to the yellow trucks, because now you can see the whole board. 20,000 pieces of equipment, and the record shows them sold, trucked, barged, and repurposed through named auction houses and documented dealers. Camps dismantled by federal requirement. Pads excavated. Tundra replanted. Against all of that, the only fleet with no paper trail at all is the one that left early. The trucks that slipped away during construction, the ones the Los Angeles Times traced from Miami to Mexico City while the company shrugged. If you want a genuine pipeline mystery, look south, because that fleet drove out on its own wheels and disappeared into driveways and back lots from Florida to Mexico. The legend had the crime scene upside down. Nothing was hidden in Alaska. The hiding happened everywhere else. Take a breath on that one, because it is the heart of this whole check. And if verified deep dives like this are your thing, subscribe, because we only publish what survives the paper trail. So here is what is still there, nearly 50 years later, and this is the part you can point a camera at. In Bowling Green, Ohio, the National Construction Equipment Museum holds the McCaffrey Archive. Row after row of inventory photographs, machines posed in a California equipment yard like mugshots, each one logged with a unit number. JV 1396, JV 1402, the F-Series lots from 5 separate auction trips. It is the closest thing that exists to a census of where the pipeline fleet went, and it sits in a filing cabinet, not under the tundra. Up on the Dalton Highway, Coldfoot is still open. The old dormitory modules are still bolted together, still renting rooms to truckers running loads to Prudhoe Bay. And when you stand in that cafe, you are standing inside the one camp that never got hauled away, because it turned into a business instead. And along the other 800 miles, the honest answer is that the pipeline itself is the monument. The camps are grass. The pads are gone. The machines are photographs in Ohio and old iron scattered through the lower 48. Worked hard on jobs that never made the news. We went looking for a buried fleet, and what we found was the opposite of a mystery. We found paperwork. The biggest private construction project in history closed out with auction catalogs and a revegetation report. Run the money one last time, because the numbers are the quiet punchline. This project was estimated at $900 million in the late 1960s. By the time the equipment went on sale, it had passed $7.7 billion, on its way to roughly $8 billion. The outhouses alone represented $15 million of construction. And when it ended, the entire physical arsenal of the thing, all 20,000 pieces, was worth whatever the used market would pay. That is the real story of every megaproject. The machines are heroes for exactly as long as the job lasts. Then they are inventory. The workers understood that before anyone else. A 28-year-old pipeline hand named Tony Nabel said it straight to Time magazine in 1977. Many days I've sat out on the line doing next to nothing or pretending to look busy and earning more than I was worth. It's going to be a rude jolt to come back to a $5 an hour job. 28,000 people at the peak, $70,000 across the whole job. And when the oil started flowing, most of them were surplus too. The machines at least got auction catalogs. If somebody told you the pipeline fleet is buried under the tundra, send them this video. And if you were there, on the line, at the auctions, or in the cab of something yellow that maybe should have gone back, we read every comment, and the comment section under our last Alaska video is the reason this one exists. Where should we dig next? Tell us below.